Okay. We welcome Mr. Lee Allford, our key speaker, next key speaker. He is work in Energy Institute of Process Safety and Decommissioning. The title of this lecture, the EI PSM framework. Mr. Lee, do you hear us?
Yes, I hear you okay, Shema. Do you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you okay. You share your presentation and we see all the slides. And you can start now.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation to present at this inaugural event. Very happy to do so. And for the next 25 minutes, I'm going to be talking about the Energy Institute Process Safety Management Framework, which I have been involved in quite closely for the last 2 or 3 years. So just a little bit about myself. I actually graduated as a chemical engineer back in the mid-80s. And the first half of my career was very much in industry, supporting frontline operations, in safety, in quality, process improvements, and also line management roles as well. In 2000, I began to manage a European company member network, which was dedicated to process safety. And since 2017, I've been supporting the Energy Institute Process Safety Committee and developing its program for process safety and decommissioning. So what I'd like to do is just give you a background to the Energy Institute first off. Okay. So the development of the framework is actually supported through the Energy Institute's technical work program. That program actually publishes through its own in-house publication team 50 products per year. And that's not only in the area of process safety, that includes other themes which are supported by various committees. So these are such as occupational health, very relevant to the topic for of the previous speaker, occupational health, human factors and organizational factors, aviation fuels and fuel handling. So a real wide repertoire of themes which are very much relevant to the energy sector, both the upstream and downstream segments. So the Energy Institute is funded by technical partners and technical company members, and they get free access to all of the Energy Institute products and publications, and these can number anything from research reports through guidance, through briefing notes, animations increasingly as well recently. And if you don't do anything else as a result of what I'm about to say, please visit the EI publishing site and avail yourself of free-to-use the free-to-use process safety management framework and the guidance for each of the elements. They're free to download as long as you use you leave your registration details, so freely available. So that really does provide a background, I think, to the Energy Institute and the technical program. I'd like now to move on to just remind you of what the process safety management framework looks like. It breaks down really into 4 high-level components called focus areas. So we have process safety leadership in the blue, risk identification and assessment in yellow, risk management in green, and review and improvements. So these are the basic building blocks, as you would describe them, for successful process safety management. What we would say is that each of these focus areas are of equal importance. You can't do one without the other. They all work in unison. But as you can see, there are different number of elements in each of these focus areas. So we have the process safety leadership focus area breaks that down into 5 elements. Risk identification into 2, and then we've got 11 for risk management and 2 for review and improvement. So they really do describe, I feel, the life cycle management of a high hazard asset. And another way of depicting the framework would be to, and this is really a conceptual view, is to see the framework very much like the Swiss cheese model. Each of the focus areas there, with each of the various elements, and we need to get those barriers right in order to prevent hazards from being realized and creating an incident, causing an incident on the right there. Now, holes do open up in the barriers, but we have to be careful to monitor the flaws and deficiencies in each of these barriers, because if the holes line up, then there's a pathway then from the hazard right through to the incident. This could be result in a near miss. This could result in a loss of containment. If there's a loss of containment, then that could well result in a fire or an explosion or a release of toxic materials that could have impacts both on site and off site. So I'd like to briefly explain what we've been doing with the revision, or as we're calling it, the second edition. And the current edition of the framework, the first edition, was actually published in 2010. And the feedback that we have been receiving from the field, so these are operating companies who have adopted the framework. The feedback is that the current edition holds up very well as far as covering all the bases with respect to process safety management. And for the last 2 years, we have been debating amongst ourselves whether we do need to add in maybe additional elements or additional expectations, or maybe we need to reorder some of the elements into different focus areas. But the news, I guess, is that, and I hope it's good news, is that only modest changes have happened to the 20 elements and their expectations. But the new revision does explicitly acknowledge the risks that are posed by cyber threats. So these have come into prominence, I would argue, over the last 10 years. And also the threats that are posed by natural hazards. So natural hazards, extreme weather events, and the impacts of climate change. So these do need to be, I think, explicitly acknowledged. Also new ways of working. These have come into prominence certainly in the last 12 months with the COVID-19 pandemic. So talking about mention of remote auditing and remote ways of working. And another difference is that the second edition will make more explicit references to human factors considerations, and even break down the topic of human factors. So human factors can unpack into various topics such as fatigue and shift handover, organizational change. So there's a little bit more mention in the second edition in respect to those topics. So the core of the document, as I've mentioned, has only undergone modest revision, but there's been more significant changes to the introduction and the annexes. The introduction describes in greater detail, gives more of a help as to how the framework can be sold into an organization. We've introduced new concepts such as the sand cone model and the 6 tenets of process safety, which Dr. Stephen Bater mentioned in his presentation earlier on today. But the annexes, there's one annex which has been added, which is gives some information on how to implement the process safety management framework. So where to start, where you might start to prioritize. There's also an example, and it's a real life example, although it has been anonymized, on the use of the process safety management framework as a self-assessment tool, as a gap analysis tool. And finally, there's an annex on how the framework actually applies to the Energy Institute and its process safety relevant resources. So it's all very well and good, the Energy Institute saying, use this framework, and yeah, that's fine. But we have also started to use it internally within the Energy Institute to look at our ongoing program for process safety, and it's also used as almost like a gap analysis. So it's just one of the factors that we use now in developing resources going forward. So I'd just like to take some time out as to what has the Energy Institute actually produced, as well as guidance for each of the framework elements in recent years, which may be grouped under the 4 focus areas. So for focus area 1, process safety leadership, I think it's of interest that not all process safety relevant publications are produced solely through the Process Safety Committee. Those particular